Some people take the straight path in life. But at Arizona State University, we respect your twists and turns. They make our online students more driven to excel in their professional lives. That's why our personalized suite of services empowers you with innovative resources and staff that sticks with you. Make your next turn with one of our 300-plus programs at ASU, #1 in innovation for 9 consecutive years. Visit us at asuonline.asu.edu to learn more.
At Amica Insurance, we know it's more than a life policy. It's about the promise and the responsibility that comes with being a new parent. Being there day and night. And building a plan for tomorrow, today. For the ones you'll always look out for, trust Amica Life Insurance. Amica. Empathy is our best policy.
McDonald's presents Burger Reviews by Hamburglar. Today's review, the classic Big Mac, Hamburglar. Robble, robble. He said, there's more sauce in every bite. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Robble. Available at most restaurants in this area.
When it comes to teaching kids and teens about money, practice makes perfect. That's where Greenlight comes in. With a debit card and money app of their own, kids learn to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest. Parents send instant money transfers, create custom chores, and automate allowance, while kids track their spending, set savings goals, and practice money skills they can use today and for life. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.
How's it going? And welcome back to On the Wire, a proud member of the Pitcher List Podcast Network. Follow the pod on the Twitter at OnTheWirePod. I am Adam Howe, and as always, I am joined by the 2020 TGFBI champion, Kevin Hastings. Kevin, I know you're not the one to bring it up. You never do, but I don't mind. So this is the episode that is befitting to your introduction. How you doing?
I'm doing wonderful and can't wait to get things started on Monday. I also can't wait to get going with our guest tonight. So I'm going to end this intro and let you get going.
So we have drafts coming up for the Great Fantasy Baseball Invitational starting Monday. So full disclosure, we are recording this on Friday. You guys are hearing this at the earliest on Sunday, but we could think of no better pair of guests to bring on with the reigning overall champion than the fantasy baseball power couple themselves, Danielle Salinger and her husband, Justin Mason. So if you've ever listened to a fantasy baseball podcast, search for advice, or even did some online shopping for some baseball-related swimwear, you've probably seen Justin's face or heard his voice. And Danielle has been just as difficult to miss, mostly found trolling Justin on Twitter or various other places, and now taking it up a notch to troll him at TGFBI. And they both can be heard together on their new podcast series, Beat Him at His Own Game, through the TGFBI podcast feed. Danielle, Justin, thank you so much for making time to join us on our 4th ever episode. You're only our third set of guests.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for having us on. I'm really happy to be here and excited to talk with you guys.
I like how you introduced me as Danielle's husband. And actually, no one can see this on your recording app, but that's what I entered the room as my name. Because I do think that is very fitting. Obviously, people often announce Danielle or refer to Danielle as my wife, but in all reality, I am her husband, and that's been my role for the last, 11, almost 12 years.
I'm in the same boat.
Yeah, so that seemed appropriate.
Yeah, no, that's right. It's completely correct.
I appreciate the recognition.
So, well, let's get this out of the way, too, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I hate waiting until the end to find out more about my guests or the guests that I'm listening to. So first and foremost, Justin, more than likely, 99.9% of our listeners have heard your voice or seen your face, like I mentioned. But where can they follow you, where they can read your work or listen to your work? And Danielle, same thing.
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter at Justin Mason, FWFB. I write at Fangraphs Daily. I write Friends Fantasy Benefits, which I co-own. I own TGFBI and TGFBI.com. I'm on the TGFBI podcast with my loving wife this season. And I also do solo episodes with guests. I'm on the Sleeper in the Bus podcast, and I'm on the Friends Fantasy Benefits Baseball podcast. And then Potapalooza, you want to see me for a lot of hours, 16 hours this weekend, 8 on Saturday, 8 on Sunday. You catch it all on Twitter, on Facebook, on, YouTube, on Twitch, and I'm actually going to even put it live streamed on Fangraphs. If you want to watch me with 110, I think, fantasy analysts over the weekend, giving away raffle prizes and talking fantasy baseball, it's going to be a blast. If you want to donate, every dollar raised goes to Mental Health America. And for every dollar you donate, you get an entry into that raffle. You can do that by PayPaling me at justinmasonfantasy@gmail.com or Venmo at Justin Salinger.
That's great. Now, if people are listening to this after Potapalooza has ended, can they still make a donation?
You can still make a donation, and I appreciate it. You won't be eligible for the majority of the prizes because I'm going to be giving those prizes out throughout the weekend. However, for every $1,000 we raise, I'm giving away a spot in TGFBI for next year. So last year we raised $6,000. I gave 6 spots into this year's TGFBI to people who won those prizes. And if we cross the threshold, so let's say we raise $5,000 throughout the weekend, that's 5 spots. But if people keep donating after that, I'll keep adding spots. And you won't be able to win some of the prizes given away over the weekend, but you could still win a spot in TGFBI. And I think that is the greatest prize of all because you get to compete against guys like Adam, Kevin, myself, Danielle next year. So that'll be a lot of fun.
That's a nice assumption you just made that Danielle's going to do this again.
I doubt she might. You never know. Like, this could become a yearly thing for her. I doubt it. She has better things to do than talk to me on a podcast and play fantasy baseball. But I think she's very competitive and she is a great trash talker. She once trash talked someone out of our league in fantasy football and was in Matthew Berry's book because of it. So she has the ability to trash talk a bit, and she doesn't have all the outlets because there's only so much trash she can talk to me on Twitter before it just gets redundant.
That's right. Now, Danielle, you've been learning a lot, and you've been learning a lot, but you've been translating that into your blog as well. Is that correct?
So that is the goal. I'm behind on that just because once we have talked with one of our experts, taking the time to actually apply that information and do some of the research and look into it, it takes a little bit longer. So I think the schedule that I set up for myself was a little too optimistic. But the goal is to be able to break down everything that I'm learning and put it into smaller pieces on the blog so that hopefully this can attract other people like me who maybe already enjoy the game of baseball, but don't really understand a lot about fantasy baseball and want to try to dip their toe in that water, or even somebody who maybe isn't a fan of baseball necessarily, but is looking for some new hobby or outlet for themselves. So I hope to break it down into an understandable way like our guests have been able to do for me. And
then where can everybody follow you and read that blog?
Yeah, everybody can read the blog at talkaboutfantasy.wordpress.com. I'll also be tweeting everything out from my Twitter at fantasy_about. And if you're interested in just hearing me reading me troll my husband, that's always at Mrs. D. Salinger. That's the fun one.
Danielle, what I love about this beat him at his own game is I made a comment during PitchCon. I get asked all the time, your strategies, your process. And I always say, all the little things add up to a big thing. But there are so many of those little things that we start to forget them. So I'm being reminded of some of them by listening to these episodes as well. It's awesome.
That's great. And that's something that I really hope for. That breaking it down maybe would still attract somebody who is seasoned in the game, but maybe help them see something that they're used to in a different light. And I think that's been pretty interesting for a lot of people. And there's a lot of little details. And while the schedule that I set for myself has been overly optimistic, at the same time, I think it's allowed me to really weed through some of those finer details and try to focus in on what is maybe the most important for my strategy and my game. And it'll be interesting to see how that plays out throughout the season.
Well, that's great. So Danielle is going into her first foray of fantasy baseball, going right into the lion's den, if you will, the TGFBI, with the over 400 people going against her. But you really only care about one person in particular and beating one person in the tournament, if I'm not mistaken.
Absolutely. Beating Justin is definitely the goal. The number one goal. Number two is just to not finish last. But from what I've learned, I think that will be something I can easily pull off. But beating Justin just for the personal satisfaction of it and for all the people who are rooting for me at this point. I mean, he's most likely right, but depending on how much time all this takes and how much I enjoy it, we'll see if I ever do something like this again. I may look into playing more leagues that are a little less time intensive, but I have said that if I beat him in TGFBI, that'll be the end. I'm going to have to walk away. That way he never gets the chance for a rematch.
There it is. Walk out on top.
A little extra stake in the heart.
Yeah. Retire Elway style. Yeah. All right. Put some things in perspective then. This is Danielle's first league. Justin and Kevin, I'm curious to know, Justin, I don't need you to go into all of them because I don't want to make this a two-parter, but can you let our listeners know some of the bigger leagues that you are in, whether they be the Tout, the Labors, or some of the larger, well-known leagues that you're participating in this year or plan on participating in?
Yeah, so I end up playing usually in anywhere from 15 to 25 leagues, and that doesn't include best ball leagues, and I'm not really playing a lot of best ball this year just because there's no in-season management, so I don't really to draft and then I forget about it. I actually typically don't even check how I'm doing in like those best ball leagues until the next season. So look, I've got $500 in my Fantrax account that I get to use. So yeah, so I typically play in about 15 to 25 redraft leagues. They vary from free leagues that are in the industry like TGFBI, or I play in Tout Wars and in Labor, and then up to $1,700 buy-ins for the main event. I've already drafted 15 of those teams, I believe, so far. So, I mean, I start drafting. I did my first draft starting in October, and then my last draft will be the night before the season for the main event. So it's a pretty wide gamut. It's mostly on NFBC, but a few leagues here and there, some Dynasty, some Keeper, but mostly it's redraft on NFBC.
And Kevin, how many teams have you drafted so far? And when did you start drafting this year?
I also started in October. In fact, I was in a league with Justin that we drafted in October. I did two of them at that time. I have added a third Draft Champions League on NFBC. I did one of their best ball, the one they added this year that is different than the cut line. A couple of best balls on Fantrax, but not as many as I have in the past. I was waiting for the live drafts to begin before I got into more best balls, and then we got busy doing this. So I haven't been drafting in the evening like I have in years past. And then I have a couple dynasty leagues, a couple other keeper leagues that I play in with some guys, and hopefully I'm still holding out hope. I was going to enter my first live event NFBC last season, still holding out hope for this season, but I'm going to do the auction championship rather than the main event. I'm a big fan of auction leagues.
Nice. Yeah, I just entered my second standalone DC league myself, and obviously TGFBI starts going on. I did my first one. Actually, did that one with Justin, ended a week ago or so. So that was a lot of fun. But my question, though, is that you guys did a draft back in October. Do you guys prefer, what's your preference on drafting back in October, November to in March? Now, I hear a lot of voices all the time about if you can wait until the day before the season starts, that's the best way to draft. But then you hear about especially like draft and hold and draft champion leagues starting back up in October or November. So Kevin, did you prefer drafting early on? And if so, like why?
They both have their advantages. I really enjoy it for one reason is it's a month after our other leagues ended and I'm not ready to be done. And it's a good time we start drafting again. But I think it depends on how much time you want to spend preparing at that time of year. Because if you do spend time preparing, you're going to get a lot of players much later in the draft than you will come February and March. And that's a big plus.
Yeah, it's true. I was looking up some of those ADPs just to compare, and a good chunk of them are relievers. And that's not too surprising just because everybody's a little nervous about where they're going to land, if they're going to land anywhere, if they're going to have a role or whatnot. But guys like Kirby Yates, even like Craig Kimbrell and Archie Bradley, they've all jumped up quite a few slots, at least 3 rounds each since October-November drafts versus drafts around now. And Justin, your season never ends. And like you're doing something all the time. So do you like having those drafts that kind of like fill in that off season? Like you're doing podcasts all year round, especially like Sleeper on the Bus and what have you. I know you're always doing constant research. So like, do you prefer taking those risks on those players in the early drafts, or you just like do they just fill the time?
I don't know that they necessarily fill the time, though. I guess they do. At least that's not the aim, right? I'm not like drafting because I'm bored. It's more of a matter of it's research. It's part of what I do. If I wasn't doing the fantasy analysis aspect of things, I might do a early draft or 2 early drafts. I would definitely not be doing 5 or 6 or 7. And if you're someone who is like Danielle and you're only going to do 1 draft a year, do it late. Do it as late as possible, because the last thing you want is to draft a team and then opening day comes and your team's already awful because of injuries or new news or whatever. But for me, it's a way of gauging the market. I think a lot of people do mock drafts. I think mock drafts can be helpful, but they're not nearly as helpful as actually drafts where there's money on the line and people are really playing it through. And I do agree with Kevin, like you get discounts early on if you're plugged in. And like you said, I start my prep for the next season usually in August. So I'm already really plugged in by the time we get to October, November in ways that a lot of other people aren't. And so I do feel like I have an extra advantage over those people who haven't done that work yet. I think they have their pluses and minuses, like Kevin said. Like you definitely get some discounts early on, but you could also have your team blow up before you even get to opening day. We did this podcast league, okay? So like Battle of the Podcasts. And there was a team where I was looking at a team after we finished the draft, and it was like somewhere late December, I think, early January. I went, man, they've got a really good team. And then 2 weeks later, or a month later, I'm looking at that team. I go, this team has no shot. Like they drafted players who, like they drafted Sin-Chu Chu. They drafted players who got hurt. They drafted players who lost closing roles because other people were signed. And it's like, it was a really good team. And like life happened, baseball happened, right? And so that's the risk of drafting early. And we're going to see that in TGFBI because we're going to start on Monday and games haven't really even started. And someone's going to draft a second-round pitcher, and that pitcher is going to blow out their elbow. What happened to me when Clevenger got hurt? Like, I drafted Clevenger one year, and then all of a sudden it's, he's going to miss 6 weeks, and it ended up being longer than 6 weeks. And I couldn't have prepared for that. That's just what happens when you are in slow drafts or in early drafts. And so there are pitfalls, but I do doing them all throughout the offseason.
Yeah, that's a good point. I always brings to mind, I think it was Eric Cross drafting Severino last year during the slow draft of TGFBI, literally like 20 minutes after it was announced he was going to have. It
was actually announced before he drafted. What happened with Eric was like even a worse, like it's like worst case scenario. He got the flu and put himself on auto draft because he didn't want to hold up the draft because he knew he was going to be in the bathroom for most of the day and night. Had Severino at the top of his queue. The news is announced. And an hour later, he gets auto-drafted Luis Severino in the 5th round. And there's nothing he can do. You're just SOL, right?
Yeah, that brings a good point just about the whole idea that is a slow draft. It's a slow draft now. TGFBI is a slow draft. They can range between an hour windows to 4 hour windows for picks. And Danielle, I think you should be ready just for the onslaught of complaints that we're going to hear from everybody thinking that every pick should be made within in 30 seconds. So I'm sure you've seen it in years past, but you're going to be right in the thick of it.
Oh, I see it all the time, constantly, the complaints about how slow of a draft it is. And at this point, it's been going on for so long, I think people just complain because they like to complain, because they know going into it that this is what's going to happen. And I've even thought that there are going to be times where I know that I'm going to need to take a little bit of time to take a look at who's gone already and who I'm looking to take with my pick. I've got other things that are going on. I've got, 2 kids in the house and I'm doing work. I'm sometimes not going to make an immediate pick. And people can go ahead and come at me with those complaints and they'll see how far it goes. I'll have some angst during the week.
I'll look
I'm
for all
sure
those
that I'll work
mentions.
that way.
And there's
all right, we brought you guys.
Sorry. There's no actual added benefit to finishing first. Everybody's always like, oh, I want to finish my draft. Let's finish. There's actually an added benefit to finishing last because you're going to have more information than all the other drafts that have finished. And so all the time people are like, oh, these drafts are finishing and we're only in the 20th round. Yeah, I know it can be frustrating, but at the same time, you're getting more information than everybody else with your last 10 picks. So like, you're actually benefiting from people being slow. Not to say that people should be, like, you shouldn't intentionally train the clock. If you know who you want to pick, just pick. But if someone's slow, people have lives. There are people playing in Australia and people playing in England. There are people who work overnights and sleep during the day. It's not a big deal if it takes a while.
Exactly.
All right, so today we wanted to talk about playing. I brought you guys on to talk about not only TGFBI, but just also playing in year-long competitions that have an overall component. So I think the majority of people that listen probably play in standalone leagues. And before we get to that, we're going to get to our typical segment. We call it Moving Targets. So this is a section where we talk about players that are currently going post 350 ADP that we're considering picking with our final pick in a 12-team draft. This could be a player that we're taking in the late rounds of TGFBI, which is 15 teams. Or if you're doing a standalone 12-teamer, a guy they might take with your very last pick because they're not getting drafted on average in those leagues. They could be players that you're stashing. You think that they could be somebody good later on or somebody that's going to have immediate value, really whatever your preference is at that time. So mine is really late, so I'm just going to get mine out of the way first. I'd love to get your guys' take on it, but I'm going to ask everybody not to think about it too much. So I'm going to go in a similar vein that Kevin talked about last week. He picked Wade Miley. I'm going to go with the pitcher, and I'm going with Jake Arietta, and it's simply a matchup play. Jake Arietta is no longer a good pitcher. I'll throw that out there. But the first couple weeks of the season, he is slated to be the number 2 pitcher for the Cubs. And so he should slate up against Pittsburgh. He'll miss Milwaukee series. And then his next opponent will be Pittsburgh again. And if they stick, and they have a lot of days off in the first 2 weeks, the Cubs do. And so if they stick with a 5-man rotation, he'll get Milwaukee right after in that he might even get a 2-step in that second week. So I'm seeing this as a good opportunity. Jake Arietta is a guy that if he has those kind of matchups during the season is somebody that I'm going to consider spending FAAB on, especially if I have injuries or I just have a hole at any area and I just need to fill it. And so I'm of the opinion that the guy you pick with my last pick, I plan on dropping him within the first month of the season. That's not for me. That last pick is not a stash pick. And so I guess I'm curious to know thoughts from anybody, whether or not this could end up being a good play or if Jake Arietta, it just has absolutely nothing and he's going to hurt me more than anything else. Kevin, what do you think?
I picked Wade Miley for the same reason last week. That's what I think. And that really sums it up. He gets Pittsburgh and Arizona on the 2-start week in the first full week of the season. So I agree with everything you just said.
Here's the thing. Like, could Arietta have a good couple first starts and good matchups and things like that? Sure. He could also go get blown up. One of his worst starts of the year in 2020 was against the Orioles at home. We're not talking about a guy who takes advantage of bad competition all the time. And for me, the worst thing I want to do is put myself in a hole early. I would much rather go with a guy that is likely to be a long man, maybe like a Yusmeiro Petit, sneak a cheap win if teams are going to be limiting their starters in terms of innings pitched in the first few outings. And we may actually see it throughout the entire season as teams like to want to cap some inning workloads and stuff. So Arietta is not a guy I would be super interested in just because of the blow-up potential. And he might go out and shove. Who knows? He clearly, the Cubs believe he's healthy enough, they signed him to a contract. But he could also just damage you right out the gate. And I just hate putting myself in a position where I'm already working from behind early in the season.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. The other guys that I basically was looking at the Cubs rotation just because looking at that schedule was pretty eye-popping. And the problem that I was seeing elsewhere in that rotation is that you just don't know who's going to end up with that final 2 or 3 spots in that rotation between Trevor Williams, Alec Mills, and take your chance. So you know what? Let's go. Justin, who are you looking at toward the end of that draft then?
Aside from the guys, like I said, I'm looking at a lot of the long men. I used this strategy last year to pretty good effect and grabbed guys like Tyler Mahle early. So the guys that are the 6th starter that are actually going to start the year in the bullpen that could come in the 5th inning and sneak some cheap wins. A guy that I like that is still going outside of the top 350, may not for very much longer, is Cesar Hernandez. He's going to lead off in Cleveland, and he's going to play every day. For me, I think often we think about guys with huge upsides at the end of the draft, or think about guys that could be streamer types, the Ariettas, and often we forget about the position players that are quote-unquote unsexy, that play every day. And especially when we're talking about deeper formats like TGFBI, I want guys that are going to play every day. So give me the Starlin Castros of the world, give me the Cesar Hernandez of the world, even like the Adam Frazier's of the world, that they're going to play every day, they're in a good spot in their lineup, and they're going to be consistent production throughout the year.
Oh man, Cesar Hernandez. Like I totally agree with you on this play, except the same play was made last year, and I made that same play last year, and he was just embarrassing. He had the same exact thing happen to him last year. He came in as a starting second baseman for what was supposed to be a good Cleveland offense. Leading off, they moved Lindor out of the leadoff spot, put Cesar Hernandez in there, and he still didn't score any runs. It was crazy. Like, I think that it could be different, and I'm not one to like completely step away from guys who have burned me in the past. So I think this is a good pick here. So speaking of positional players, Kevin, I think you got a positional player that you're considering.
Yeah, and I'm going to go with Hunter Renfroe, and it ties into what Justin was saying, picking him late just so I can see if he's going to get more playing time than people might expect. Because I think that's the only reason he's going outside the top 350 right now is playing time. And I looked up the last month of online championships. He is exactly 350 ADP. But the reason I looked at these leagues is he's only been drafted in 6 of the 21 leagues. But if he starts playing every day, like I think he could, then he will be picked up in those leagues he was not drafted in. Most of the projections have him playing about 110 games. 140 is what I'm looking at. If he could bump up to that, then you're looking at 2019 production over 30 home runs. Yes, he's a batting average drain, big time, but somebody that can give you a lot of power, RBI, probably hitting about 6th in that Boston lineup. He's somebody that I would take a chance on late to see if he is going to get consistent at-bats.
Yeah, roster resource has him batting 6th, just like you said, right above Franchi Cordero and right after Christian Vasquez. So we'll see if that holds. They don't have him in a platoon, at least on roster resource at the moment. And I do know, or I think I heard that Alex Cora was talking about having a much smaller bench just because of the guys that they were able to bring in Boston that have multi-positional flexibility, Marwin Gonzalez, Hernandez, and what have you. So that he could see a lot more playing time than I think people are thinking. I think you might be right on that. And as a Red Sox fan, I don't care, only because it's like it's been a lost season ever since Mookie left. So it's like, all right, if it happens, great. All right, Danielle, I want to know if you've soaked up enough information from all the experts you've been able to talk to have a plan come the end of TGFBI, and if you've got anybody that you're looking at, because the beauty of this is that when you're that late in the draft, you can almost get whoever you want, especially if they're already have an ADP of lower than 350. So do you have anybody in mind at the moment?
I do, actually. I'm still in early days of taking everything that I've heard and been told and applying that in some way. So I don't exactly have my strategy set or anything, but I have been looking at players a little bit and looking at some things. I came into this really wanting to take the baseball fan out of the player, but at the same time, the person that I've been looking at is Brandon Belt. because I feel that for where he is in the ADP and what his numbers are, he's somebody that I could take late, that he could still have a benefit to my team. But at the same time, it's a little bit of the fun of being somebody that I'm cheering for anyways, since I'm a Giants fan, and just adding to my enjoyment of the fantasy baseball, so that it's not just rooting for whoever else I have, but I can actually wear the gear of Brandon Belt. But he's somebody that I'm looking at that I know that he's certainly dropped from where he was, say, 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, but I still think that there's enough there that he could be a benefit, especially late in the draft.
Yeah, there's something to be said about just having players on your team that you actually want to root for as well, and not just having players that you think are going to do well. Hopefully they do both. Yeah. So I figured that there would be some Giants talk. I made sure to wear my Matt Cain Giants shirt during this. That's obviously nobody can hear. Actually, my TGFBI shirt just came in the mail this morning, so I was going to wear that, but I figure I have my slot at Potapalooza on Sunday, so I'll probably wear that during Potapalooza where people can actually see me.
I'm jealous because ours got lost in the mail. So we have not received our TGFBI shirts yet, which just is such a bummer. But because Justin and I had talked about this, about people who, my brother plays fantasy football with us, and he always takes Niner players, and he always really hypes them up and talks them up. And don't get me wrong, I'm a San Francisco girl through and through, always have been. And I love the Niners too, but my goodness, I am not drafting them. And so if I'm not going to do it for football, I certainly didn't want it to do that for baseball. And I feel like if I had been quiet about this, maybe I could skate through, but I think there's a little bit of more attention on what I'm doing and what I'm doing with my team. And so I didn't want to have the homer team. Brandon Belt could be the little bit of chocolate I, allow myself at the end of the week. My little treat to myself.
All right, nice. All right, all great picks. Something for everybody to consider. Make sure you guys are letting us know who you guys are considering on Twitter at OnTheWirePod. You can follow us there. Let us know who you're looking at. If any of these names ring a bell to you that you're like, all right, stop talking about them. I want to make sure I get them, type of thing. Or other guys that we should be talking about. We still have a couple more off-season episodes, and we'll talk about a couple more players. We try to pick different players every time. We've been successful so far, but there's only going to be so many options. So, all right, Danielle, I was telling Justin and Kevin earlier in the week that the thing I really wanted to avoid here was not turning this podcast into your podcast. Like, we're not here to teach you anything. You've been listening to a lot of really smart people, and I'm almost caught up. I just finished listening to Alex Fast talk nerdy, which is a little bit different than Toby talking dirty. For those who feel free to listen on your own, we won't get into any detail on this podcast. Anyway, so we don't want to teach you anything. So instead, I'm taking this as more of a quiz. So I want to make sure that I'm able to see how much you actually have soaked in. Like I said, we're recording this on Friday, so you still have the weekend to really hunker down before the draft starts. And as we said, it is a slow draft, so you still have days and days to really fine tune. But I want to see where you're at. So first and foremost, I wanted to throw out something for you. I want to give a plug out to one of our other podcasts in the Pitcher List Podcast Network that I think would be really helpful to everybody. I know I've been listening to it, and it's been amazing. And that's Alex Chase and Matt Goodwin do a great job on Dugout Study Hall, and where they basically all they're doing is they're taking statistics, usually higher level statistics, and breaking them down in a layman term. And that's what Matt plays the layman, and Alex Chase plays the statistician. And they do a really good job of putting things in perspective on what is good. Like, I heard you talking to Alex, you're like, you can throw all these numbers at me, but if you don't tell me what they mean or in what context, I don't care. I can't do anything with them. So highly recommend that for you and anybody else listening. I think we're going to have Alex Chase on the podcast next week talking about stats that he looks for, that we should be looking for in season to determine whether or not somebody's a good FAAB pickup, whether they're on a hot streak that's not going to end or a cool streak that is going to end and what have you. Definitely want to recommend that. But my first question to you is, can you please explain to our listeners the difference between a standalone league and one that has an overall component, and as you've come to understand it? And then Justin, to follow up, go right into it. I want to know why you chose to make TGFBI one that has an overall component, and ultimately why TGFBI exists in the first place.
Okay, let's see if I've got this. So in a standalone league, All you have is yourself and the other individuals that are in that league, and that is who you are playing against. So at the end of the season, depending on where you're ranked, that tells you in that league if you've won. So if you're number one, that's it, you're done. However, when you have an overall league, you have multiple leagues. And so even though you may be number one in your league, depending on the points or however it's added up that you've acquired by the end of the season, you may actually, depending on how many leagues there are in this umbrella league, you may end up coming in 25th or 40th or 13th. It doesn't necessarily mean that you won, because you're then going up against everybody else in all of those other leagues.
That's how I understand it.
Nailed it.
Exactly.
Yay!
So yeah, Justin,
Thanks
why is
for the softball.
TGFBI? You got to get your name right. That's how you get the first 40 points. Yeah. So Justin, why did you determine you started TGFBI on Fantrax, if I'm not mistaken? I didn't play in the first year, and then the second year you moved it to NFBC, and I was able to play in one of the satellite leagues that year, which was fun. It was funny is that I won that satellite league that you still had on Fantrax. And then, so I won an opportunity to join the 2020 TGFBI, but in that offseason, I also joined Pitcher List. So I felt bad negating and quote unquote taking away a spot from somebody who could have taken it. But it is maybe that helped me get on Nick's good graces and join Pitcher List. I don't know. So I'm not familiar. Was it an overall league on Fantrax as well? Or it was. Okay. So why overall?
Because the whole idea is to see, not the whole idea, but one of the ideas is to see who's the best. And we have things like Tout and Labor, which have multiple leagues, but they're also multiple formats, right? Tout has the head-to-head. They've got the mixed auction, the mixed draft, AL only, NL only, and now they've added another mixed auction this year. But that doesn't tell you who had a better season between me and Clay Link, because Clay is in a different league. You can't really, he may have won his league, but I may have actually had a better team or something. And I just went up against Adam Ronis, who had a great team in my league. So don't get me wrong. Like, I think Tout and Labor are fantastic. They're great competitions. I participate in both. But I thought, like, what is one of the things that is missing? And it's an overall champion of the entire industry. And that's what kind of TGFBI does. And yeah, it's great that Kevin won his league, but isn't it that much greater that Kevin won the overall last year? You said it in the podcast, or Kevin was like, I'm not going to say it all the time. I'd have that tattooed on my forehead. Danielle would have to look at it every time she looked at me in the morning.
At the very least, he'd have a shirt made.
He wouldn't have to. RotoWare would just make it for him.
Yeah, when I won the Barf League, which is another industry league, I thought about paying people to carry me in on a throne. I'm not a gracious winner at all. And now the Barf League is joining up with a bunch of other area leagues that have spawned off of it to create an overall. And I think it just adds a fun component. It also forces people to like draft somewhat balanced. You can technically punt a category, but it's really difficult. Scott Chu did it from Pitcher List. He punted speed one year and finished 7th overall. And so like it can be done, but I think it forces you to draft a little bit more balanced, which I think is a better example for the people listening or reading material out there of this is the way you should compete. And NFBC is becoming huge. And NFBC plays a lot of overalls. So I think it was beneficial to have an overall for TGFBI.
Nice. Yeah, I agree. And you're right. NFBC definitely is getting a lot bigger and bigger. I know I just started playing in 2019. I played in one of the Memorial Day tournaments that also had an overall component to it. And you only played half the season. Little did we know that would just become the norm of playing a half a season, which is unfortunate. But hopefully that's not the case this year. Kevin, like, when did you start playing in overall leagues? And did you change anything? Did you prep differently? Did you draft differently?
I started in about 4 years ago with the draft champions and an online championship. And even the cut lines have overall. And that's when I started dabbling in NFBC. Justin nailed it. Really, the only difference for an overall is really, for me, I don't do a lot of things different. I'm still drafting to win my league, but I'm not going to punt anything. So that just with that caveat, just like Justin said,
Yeah, that makes sense, especially since you're going up against TGFBI. You're going up against 400 plus people. What's the final tally, Justin? How many people?
435.
Jeez,
Wow.
It was 385 last year.
395, I believe.
395. Jeez,
Yeah.
Just keeps growing. Yeah. So, Danielle, I was curious to know through all this time, I was curious to know what preconceived notions or expectations did you have going into this process that you are now questioning, or you're after talking to all the experienced people you've had the luxury of talking to. Is there anything that you're like, all right, this part will be easy, or this part I'm not even thinking about it, and now are you just what has got turned on its head?
There's nothing that I really thought was going to be easy, which I think is why I avoided playing for so long. Justin's asked me to play in a league before, but I've always said no. But I think that surprisingly, things aren't as difficult as I thought they were initially. Even in looking at some of the statistics that I've learned about so far, even understanding the terms better, it's not as complicated as I thought it was. Also, and maybe it's because I've heard too many people talking about how fantasy baseball was back in the day when you'd have to look at the stats and everything in the newspaper and then go and tally things up yourself. I think because I did not have an interest in the game, I didn't realize how many great resources are out there. I had anticipated that things like, okay, if I'm going to understand the schedule for this pitcher and who he's going to be facing and figure out if this is something I'm going to want, I'm going to have to go to that team and look at their schedule and do everything individually. I had anticipated a lot more work on my behalf, but there are great sites that are already doing that. And it's just a matter of understanding where to look and how to read what you're looking at. So fantasy baseball is still a very difficult game. It still has its own set of complications. It's just not what I had built it up to be in my head. It's a lot more accessible than I thought.
Very nice.
Yeah. It also helps that my, husband works in this business and is able to introduce me to some really fantastic people, and that I've met some great people along the way on my own. That certainly helps, but it's still, that's been a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, you've definitely had that luxury. Some of the names you guys have brought on the podcast to talk, just literally sit down and just one-on-one. I heard a lot of people using the joke is like the mansplaining you all the different things, but really just about everybody is an expert in something that they're talking about. And Justin, you've done a really good job of picking the right people to talk about the right subject matter as well. I loved Ian's when Ian Kahn came on and he's just, what are we talking about? I don't even know what we're talking about. And then you're just like, we brought you on to talk about this because this is what you do really well. And he's like, all right, cool, let's do it. And so that's great. Yeah. And then, Yancey said the same thing. Yancey Eaton was our first guest. And he said something very similar. It was like, he's able to just lean on, I think he called them like the spirit animal, his spirit guiders or whatever of the industry. And I think he said the same thing on your podcast. And it's nice to be able to have those relationships that you're able to create. And not everybody obviously gets those relationships. And I know there's a lot of people in the industry that are very open, and I know, Justin, your DMs have been open since I've learned about you and everybody. So I know there's a lot of people out there. Take advantage of that. I know Nick Pollock just opened up his DMs recently, and so far so good. He says, and just, I guess my advice there is, take advantage of what you have to offer, or the people that can offer you free advice. Really, it's great to go ahead and spend money on subscriptions to the magazines that you really trust or the sites that you really trust. I've got my Fangraph membership because there's and my RotoWire membership. I know there's areas that I could improve on, and those are great resources. But if you have the ability to talk to the right people at the right time, do it. The worst thing that they can say is no, or don't bother me, or not answer. And then you just move on to somebody else.
So far, all of our guests have been really great and have said, get my number from Justin and you go ahead and text me if you have any questions or anything comes up. And it's great that I have that access. But a lot of these individuals, if you reach out on Twitter, this community is really wonderful and they're excited to talk about baseball and about fantasy baseball and to answer questions the majority of the time. So I tend to be a shy person normally. So, for anybody out there, they should just go ahead and take that leap and reach out and talk to people.
Yeah, and there's communities out there as well. Justin, you just started a Discord for FWFB. I know I'm in that as well. It's a lot of fun. A lot of new faces, a lot of new voices. I believe that Free plug, Pitcher List obviously has a great Discord that you're in as well. Join PL Plus. You can talk to us on the Discord whenever you want. And there's your free DM option as well to any of us. And then I think you're going to start one for Sleeper in the Bus, I believe.
We just started it, and it's now up. Now's the time to join the Sleeper in the Bus one, because there's only 7 people in the Discord. So it's like, you want like limited access or unlimited access to Paul and I, and not have to like filter through hundreds of messages. Like the Discord is great, and that's available through our Patreon/Sleeper in the Bus. And it's one of the things that I think people talk about it enough in the industry, but maybe that people don't realize like just how accessible a lot of us are in the industry. And it's really one of the reasons I've gotten to where I'm at, because I've been able to build relationships with people early on in my career doing this, like Laura Michaels, who was a mentor of mine, and Paul Sporer and Osiris and Howard Bender. These guys really took me under their wings and helped me understand lots of aspects of the industry and have made me better players. And then being able to connect with other up and coming people like Alex Fast and Nick Pollock, and guys that came into this a little bit after me, but have really taught me a lot. And so I'm very open. Like I said, I leave my DMs open for people to ask me questions that they don't want their league mates to be able to see. Because if you're smart, you follow all your league mates on Twitter or on Facebook. So that way, if they do tag an expert, you can be like, okay, oh, he might be taking Brandon Hayes next round. Okay, that's why I leave my DMs open. And then also sometimes people reach out to me for not fantasy related like help, because I am an addiction counselor and I try to help support people in every way I can. It's open for that as well. And reach out to your favorite analyst. The worst thing they can do is ignore you. And then you move on to someone who does talk to you. And I think don't be afraid to reach out. I think that often people like, this person doesn't care about my fantasy team. And that may be true, but most of us will still answer.
Sure. Yeah, I made a new Twitter handle when I got into the industry just so my home league mates wouldn't follow me. And now they all know what it is because I've been pushing this podcast onto them. Hey, you need to lose my pod. And then they figured it out. But no, it is what it is. And so we're also going to refrain from any more Sleeper in the Bus promos. You guys don't need that. You already crushed us in the baseball pods first round. Who would have thought?
I was surprised. I voted for you guys.
I appreciate
So did I.
We got 150 votes. We were pretty happy about that.
Yeah. Yeah,
we
no, you guys
had a
did
better
great.
matchup for the exposure, you know.
Yeah, and I think like one of the reasons I started TGFBI, and I think this in the same kind of vein, this baseball pods tournament, is to give people who do good work or are good at playing the game more exposure, because not everybody's going to get into Tout Wars, not everybody's going to get into labor, but everybody gets into TGFBI that applies on time. That's
everybody.
Danielle
is a perfect Danielle's a perfect example. Is she set up a website? It wasn't even fantasy baseball. That she found a loophole there. Is she just set up a website about fantasies and trolled me and was like, no, now you got to take me in. You said it. But like the baseball pods tournament's great because I go and listen to every podcast that I haven't heard before, and like that's one of the reasons why I went and listened to you guys. Also, I really like Kevin and Adam, so like I wanted to check out the new pod and stuff. But I think it's great that he's doing these tournaments, and I know it can get a little contentious, and people are like, I want to win. The real prize isn't winning the tournament. Nick won with Pitcher List last year. Like all he got was like a pat on the back. And he can, maybe if he wanted to, he could put it in his Twitter bio.
No, he's got a plaque. Chris sent him a plaque. It was amazing.
Did he really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't even know that. Oh, now I have to win. No, but like the real prize is some of these podcasts only have 100 listeners. After this tournament, maybe they'll have 150 or 200 or 500. And I think that's the really cool part, is you're exposing some people in the industry that maybe wouldn't get that exposure otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've seen so many comments just in the last couple of days. It'd be like, I didn't know that existed. That's amazing. Like, I'm going to start listening to that. Like Roto-Brits. Like, I saw a very specific comment and be like, I had no idea that this existed. I live in England. I'm going to listen to this all the time. That was one of the best comments I saw so far. All right. So as Nick would usually say on his podcast, and we might go a little long on this, and I appreciate you guys giving us all the time that you can, but we need to get into at least some kind of strategy talk. And so as we're starting to draft TGFBI starting on Monday, I'm curious to know your guys' take, Danielle, especially you, as you're starting to form your strategy from scratch. First and foremost, a question to all of you guys. And Kevin, I'll start with you. Does or should FAAB come into mind when constructing your roster during a draft? And what I mean by that is, do you like to budget your FAAB throughout the season? If at all, do you chase 2-star pitchers with your FAAB? Do you take flyers on would-be closers, streaky hitters, et cetera, et cetera? And then do you consider what your budget's going to be throughout the season when you're drafting, especially late in the draft?
There's a couple of ways to go with this. One is, I don't want to have to chase categories with my FAAB because everyone else is going to be doing the same thing and it gets really expensive. The other is, I treat the last couple of rounds, like we talk about each episode here, as my first FAAB period. Unless I have a serious injury to a member of my team, I don't want to be spending any money that first FAAB period. I should already have that planned out by looking at the schedule the first couple of weeks of the season and already planning ahead, like we will when we're doing our FAAB right now as well.
I'm going to jump to Danielle first before you answer the question. Quiz.
Oh, no.
What does FAAB stand for?
I'm not even going to bother to try because I don't know.
Well, think about what type of players are we talking about with FAAB?
We're talking about players that are available to
not
be picked
signed.
up. So on the waiver wire, that's what it would be for football. So I don't know if it's the same for baseball. Is it the same? I have no idea. Yeah. See, we saved free agent acquisition.
What's the B?
Budget.
There it is. Oh. Nice. We got it.
Okay. See, we have set FAAB for being after the draft. So correct. We weren't even getting into FAAB at all during this 2-week prep for me. When I came up with the concept for this podcast, this series, I broke things up into pieces of what I thought I needed to know and for the draft. And so anything else we saved for doing in season. So yeah, we haven't gone over it at all. But I will. Do
you know how much money you're going to have?
Nope.
Okay.
$2,000. No, I have no idea.
Oh, so close. Nice round number. Yeah.
Because I don't know, and maybe this is a benefit, maybe it's a disadvantage, but because I haven't gotten into that part of it, it's not even a part of what I'm thinking of. I'm just going to be trying to draft the most well-rounded team that I can, and then I'm looking at FAAB in my peripheral vision is just hopefully the icing on top of the cake. That just whatever extra that I might be needing, but I'm certainly not going to be relying on it.
Justin, do you have anything to add to either one of those, or do you do anything differently?
No, I actually really agree with both of them. Here's the thing, I think often people go, I'm not going to spend money on closers because I can FAAB that in season. Like Kevin said, everybody is spending that on season. And if you're budgeting a certain amount towards going after closers or going after streaming 2-star pitchers or doing this, what if something goes wrong? What if your main stolen base asset or your top tier pitcher goes down? Well, now you have less money to work with for either replacing that player or going after those categories you didn't draft in the draft. I like to leave my draft with a complete team. So that way that free agent budget can be addressing any weaknesses I've figured out after the draft, or the what ifs. Everybody's going to have players that get hurt or they don't reach the potential. They lose playing time for some reason. And I want that FAAB money to go to filling those holes as opposed to one that I decided to dig in the middle of my draft or at the beginning of my draft.
You touch on almost all three of the specific topics I was going to go on. So I'm going to go into a little bit more detail on those. So Kevin, you made some great comments at PitchCon about drafting closers in free agency. So I want you to elaborate that on a little bit. Do you pay for your closers now, or do you pay for your closers with FAAB? As you mentioned earlier, everybody's going to be doing it. Are you everybody, or are you doing it a little bit differently?
I think I'm shifting gears just a little bit. I have typically been a draft later closers type person, not wanting to spend too high of a pick or too many auction dollars on closers. However, because of the way teams operate now, and more of them are distributing their saves amongst more and more players, I really think that having one of the closers that's going to get most of the ninth inning opportunities for a team really frees up almost a spot in your lineup as far as your 9 pitchers you can start. He takes the place of 2 or 3 relievers for someone else, where I can, if I'm deep in starting pitching, just start another starting pitcher. If it's a 2-start pitcher streamer, that type of thing, I can play another starter if I have one of those handful of guys that I'm comfortable is going to get each save opportunity for his team.
That's a good point. I heard you say something similar in PitchCon. If anybody hasn't listened to that, they can go and check out the Pitcher List YouTube channel. All of the PitchCon panels and presentations are up on there. Watch them as you see fit. So I'm glad that you were able to elaborate on that a little bit, Kevin. Thanks. So I saved this one for Justin on purpose, which I'm sure he's aware. It's very well documented about, I think it was your 2019 main event team. So Justin, what have you learned from that main event team and any other experiences you've had on drafting guys who are either injury prone, and I'll use that term with quotations because, you know, that's debatable whether it's an appropriate term to use or not, or just guys that started off the season hurt, you expect to come back, or guys that you expect. So you have your whole bunch of pitchers that are coming back from Tommy John, whether it be Jameson Taillon, Syndergaard, Sale. A lot of these guys aren't going to come back until the very end of the season, if at all. And some guys are starting off the season, like Taillon, just recovering. But then you have guys that are just, they have a history. Stanton, Judge, Byron Buxton, Bellinger, at least have question marks. How much does that now play into account when you are drafting, and how much is that in your mind?
This is one of those things that it has some truth to it, because I did draft like a bunch, not necessarily a bunch of injured guys, but I drafted a few injured guys on that main event team. But what really went wrong with that main event team was, one, some really bad luck. I drafted, I think, 4 guys who were injured. And I was like, if this team survives till May, I have a really good shot at winning my league and potentially the overall as well. And it just didn't survive. The part that people isn't publicized as much is that I lost 18 of my draft picks to injury that year. So on top of the 4 I already drafted. And so that's part of the calculus and thinking that goes into it, is when you draft an injured guy, you have to account for the fact that other people on your team can get injured. Or when you stash someone, like, you may lose other people on your team. And so you may not be able to weather that. And I had to drop guys like Scott Kingery because he got hurt like in spring training, like right after the draft and stuff. And then he came back and have a really good season. And because I had to roster Giancarlo Stanton, who was healthy coming into the year and then got hurt. And the other thing I did that was a huge mistake in that same kind of context is I thought the way to win an overall was to put together a team of really risky players, not necessarily injury risky, but like high upside, high reward type players. And I was like, okay, they all come together and that's how you win the overall. And what people like Kevin have shown and people like Dave Potts have shown and Todd Zola have shown is that's not how overalls are won. Like, overalls aren't won by a bunch of these risky players. It's won by getting production at every draft pick and then doing the FAAB game really well. And so I don't mind drafting an injured pitcher. Like, people like, you've become really injury adverse. That's not necessarily true. I pick my spots better is what I do. And that's the real difference. Like, I'm not going to, last year with Verlander, not that I thought he necessarily was going to get injured, but there was the injury risk. He was hurting in the summertime before the season started. And I'll take my injury risk pitcher like on CMart at pick 350 as opposed to taking it in the 3rd or 4th round. And I'm definitely not going to take a bunch of them. You take a shot on 1, maybe 2, but be willing to drop those guys like at the drop of the hat if you need to make room for somebody else via FAAB. Especially if you want to ask your wife for another $1,700 to do this. Again, it's imperative strategy. Or else she's just going to go into the backyard and throw it in the fire pit.
That's nice. Yeah, I put up a poll on, because I basically have a budget this year of around $350, $400 that I wanted to spend it in NFBC. And I put up a poll. Justin, thank you for retweeting that out. I got way more comments on it with that. But I think it was Mike the Mouth made a comment. And he's like, hey, just use my promo code for $100 off and then use the $350 toward a main event team. Go big. I'm like, yeah, I don't necessarily disagree with that thought, but are you also fronting me the extra $1,200 that I'll need to get to the total amount?
Decide on what you're gonna do with that.
I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to end up going more variety. I really want to play in the online championship. So instead I entered a solo or standalone DC style league. And then I registered for an OC or an online championship qualifier that I'm looking for people to join. It's a 2-hour clock. There's only 2 spots. So if anybody listening is looking to, as I put it, like I wanted to also put it, I'm somewhat new to NFBC. Like I said, I played in one league in 2019. I played in TGFBI last year. I am looking to expand my horizon in the format this year. So this will be my 3rd league. I do plan on, spending the rest of it. So I'll be in at least 1 or 2 more leagues. I might do a DC. I might just do a couple more 50s and FBC 50s, but we'll see.
Can you drop that link in the Friends Fantasy Benefits Discord?
I will. Yeah, I'll do that.
DM it to me first. And then maybe, because Danielle and I have been talking about, she needs to do like maybe a league draft practice so that way she can try it out. And since that'll be starting before TGFBI, it'll give her
as long as it fills.
Yeah, that way it give her time to practice a little bit on the platform. Because like I love NFBC, but it takes some getting used to.
Sure. The only thing about that league is it is a 12-team league. And so the draft will go a little differently than TGFBI, which is 15 teams.
I just want her to like practice.
Get in the room. Yeah.
Get in the room. This is how you enter the room. This is how you search a player. This is how you
head held high, shoulders back.
Yeah. Exactly. I'll do the actual drafting. It'll be my team, but it'll give her an opportunity to try it out a little bit.
No, I'm not sure if you heard the sigh of relief there when he said that, but it was pretty big over here.
I think that's amazing. I think you mentioned something like that on one of your podcasts about doing either tutorial videos or just being in the room and I think that's really important, especially in the NFBC format. It is different. Justin, I agree with you. Like, I've learned to love it. Like, I've learned to really, really get comfortable with it. But that first time I did it, I'm like, I don't know. And actually, one of our mailbag questions at the very end is going to talk about this. And so I won't dive into it until we get there. But it wasn't the easiest site to move around in, especially in season. And so it's good to be able to have that kind of intro. And I know there's some tutorial videos out there on YouTube that they made a couple years ago that are still available. So anybody who's not familiar, definitely check those out. And Justin, if you ever get around to actually making some of your own, please send me the link to those because I'll definitely want to share those out and watch them myself, to be honest. All right. And the last thing, Danielle, I don't think you've gotten to a prospect episode or like a rookie episode. I don't know if you guys are planning on doing one like that, but I'm curious to know if you've given any thought into drafting prospects or guys that are stashing. Do you plan on staying completely away from prospects? The Jared Kelenics, who everybody now thinks he's going to start the season, but there's no guarantee unless he has a contract, or even the Wander Francos of the world, who everybody knows is a top prospect, but nobody has any idea of when he's actually going to come up and how much he's actually going to help. Have you given any thought into those kind of risks in your drafts?
To be honest, the short answer is no. And the longer answer is that I met sweet Mr. Mason here when he was 19. And at the time I was 27, I believe, because I like younger guys as much as the next gal, but I stay away from the minors. And that would be a definite not.
That puts things in perspective. Thank you. All right. And then, last thing I'll talk about strategy with you guys. A question for all of you guys. And it goes back to what our first segment is about those movable targets, late round picks. In general, what are you looking to target? Are you looking to target upside, long term? Are you looking to that injured guy that's going to come back and help you later on? The prospects that you're going to stash that you hope are going to come up early, or guys that are going to have a good schedule, like I talked about early on, and then you dump them later? Kevin, like what are you looking for, especially I'm going to stick with TGFBI. It's a 15-team league. There's a lot of different strategies based on it, whether it's a 12-team or 15-team, based on what the free agent field looks like. So let's stick with a 15-teamer. What is your typical? Which direction are you typically going with those last couple picks?
Any of those are going through my mind at that point. They're all possibilities. Also, prospective closer that doesn't necessarily have the job, so he hasn't been drafted yet at that point, is another possibility. Like we did talk earlier, I do like to look at the schedule a couple weeks in and make that my first FAAB period in those last couple rounds as well. But yeah, any of those are possibilities for sure.
Justin, are you doing anything specific in the late rounds?
Specifically, what I tend to do is I look at the team I've already drafted. So if we're talking about we're in round 28, I've drafted 27 players. I look at my team and I go, do I have any weaknesses? And so it can be different for every draft because I'm not going to draft the same team over and over again. So if I'm looking at my team and I go, ooh, I really need some speed. Okay, I'm gonna look for a guy that maybe can offer me some speed. If I'm looking for power, I look for a guy who can offer me some power. If I'm feeling pretty good about my balanced approach, I'm either going to look for someone with maybe that could have some big upside, or I'm looking to the schedule. But for me, it's all about like assessing my team and being really honest with myself. Where are my weaknesses? Because it's super rare to come toward the end of a draft and be like, this team is perfect. If you're telling yourself that, you're probably lying to yourself. So it's really good to just take a real hard critical look at your team and go, where is the areas that I need to improve? And that's what I'm going to try to address the last few rounds.
So Danielle, do you have a plan? And I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but do you have a plan in place for those later rounds besides just drafting Giants players?
Just possibly the one, and we'll see how that goes and how it ends up playing out. I don't have a set plan in place, but it was suggested to me to really look at the later rounds of players and see what's still going to be available possibly in those last rounds that I maybe don't have to worry so much about in the beginning. And so for me, those later rounds are the names that I am less familiar with. So going into this, I'm going to be really looking at that end first. The other names I'm a lot more familiar with. A lot of people talk about them more often. I'm going to see them coming up in my Twitter feed a lot more often. So going into this evening and this weekend, while you guys are all enjoying Potapalooza, I'm going to be doing a lot of studying. I'm hoping to throw some chocolates out in the grass, pretend it's Easter, have the kids go for a little hunt so they can leave me alone and I can do some studying. And I'm going to be looking at a lot of that and trying to figure out what is okay for me to wait on so that I have a better idea of who to focus on and target in the beginning.
Wait, so you're not on a panel for Potapalooza? That's
Here's
disappointing.
The thing. It's at my house. I'll be popping in regularly. I'm pretty sure last time I did something funny last year, although I can't remember what.
You were the round girl.
Oh, is that what yeah, that's right. I had a little sign I would go in at the beginning. So I'll do something, I'm sure.
All right.
But it was a little easier then because I think the kid was a lot less mobile than she is now.
I like the point you made about knowing the players that are going to be available later so that you don't have to think about them so much early on. So you can skip out on a second baseman or a shortstop if you got a guy later on that you're really hoping. It goes into your roster construction and what have you. And funnily enough, Kevin and I just recorded an episode with Miles Nelson, one of the new podcasts, another one of the new podcasts on the Pitcher List Podcast Network, Pitcher's Duel, where you just take a subject matter and two people debate the opposite ends of it. And it was funny because it was roster construction during a draft versus just taking the best player available. And Miles messaged me. He's like, hey, do you want to do this with Kevin? I'm like, yeah, absolutely. What side do I have to argue? And he's the best player available. I'm like, oh, okay. All right. I'll do my best. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. And so I think what you said goes a long way about depending on who you're going to draft throughout your draft, whether it be the first round or the 30th round, having a plan later on is really important.
Yeah. For me, the only thing I have to compare this to is fantasy football. And even with that, for as many years as I've done it, it's towards the end of the draft that the wheels start to fall off for me. I've done the go with the best player available. At a certain point, I don't know. I don't know.
Is he better?
So, yeah. So I would like to have a lot less of that kind of concern and confusion towards the end. There will be some, I'm sure, but minimize it as much as possible.
Yeah. All right. So I'm going to end with asking you guys all to make some TGFBI predictions for me before we get into a couple mailbag questions, if you guys don't mind sticking around for those. So I think it was a couple weeks ago at this point, Toby, Batfit Crazy, his tweet from before the 2020 drafts retweeted out where he put out what the 2019 80th percentiles category or stats for each category were to win so basically the categories the stats you're looking to hit to win your league. And so you guys should have that in front of you. If not, I'm not going to rattle them off. You guys can all look for his tweet out there. But I want you to tell me which of these categories do you think is going to make the biggest swing in either direction come this season in 2021. And again, I'm using 2019, obviously, because that's a full season and we didn't have that luxury in the 2020 season. And what categories are you prioritizing that category when you're drafting? Or you're just thinking you're just going to go completely. Kevin, did you have a chance to think about this?
I did. And we've already talked about it a couple of times, that I don't know that you'll have to get to 75 saves to be in the 80th percentile, because of the way saves are distributed by MLB teams these days and more teams doing it. At the same time, I think I'm going to prioritize them with one. Like we said earlier, I'm not going to go through the whole and repeat it all over again, but I don't think it'll take 75 to be in the 80th percentile.
So what number do you think it'll be this year?
Well, it's not going to go down a ton, but if you took off 10% or so, you'd get it 67, 68.
Okay. Danielle, did you have a chance to look at this? Do you have a stat in mind?
So I have it in front of me, and I am still figuring this sort of stuff out. And this is just based off of a conversation that we had with Paul Sporer today. Part of me is wondering if the numbers for RBIs will change at all this year with what MLB is trying to do with the dead ball. So I'm very curious. I don't know if it's something that they'll keep with, if it will come up with the results that they're wanting to see. But I'm wondering about the impact that it might have on RBIs for players.
Sure. Just to put that in perspective, it was 1,077 in 2019. And so if you had a guess on a number that if it'll come down, how far down do you expect it, or do you think it'll go? And this can be a complete shot in the dark. That's fine. Just
to be funny, I'm going to say 1,069.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. There it is.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right, Justin, which one of these categories are you focusing on?
See, this is the fun part about podcasting with Danielle, because sometimes she will guess something or just hypothesize in her mind, and she doesn't really know if it's the right answer, but she absolutely nails it. I'm going to take it a little bit step further. 2019 was a really live year for the ball, right? The ball was jumping all over the place. There were a lot of home runs. I think all these numbers could change. If the ball is truly dead and we go from the last year being an average ball, 2019 was a really live ball, and now they're going to deaden the 2020 ball to make this 2021 ball less lively, I think all these numbers could change. Maybe the saves and the stolen bases don't change quite as much, but who knows what teams will do if the ball becomes dead and they start pushing it on the base paths. I think it's great to have category targets in mind for your projections as you're drafting. I think this is a year maybe to be less beholden to them entirely, because I think that it's going to be really different, or it could be really different. And the last thing you want to do is go, oh, okay, I got to my 349 home runs. I'm done. I'm going to address all the other categories. No, I mean, try to build as balanced of a team as you can and get as much production from every spot. And don't hold these numbers too tightly, because we could see ERAs dramatically lower. We could see whips lower. We could see home runs lower. We could see strikeouts go up. We could see strikeouts go down. Like, we don't even know how this is going to affect it. Like, truly, and we'll get a better idea as we start seeing spring training games. It was really obvious at the beginning of 2019 that the ball was lively. Like, that first week, everybody was like, oh my God, the ball is traveling. And there was studies done really quickly. But until we have that information, we're guessing. And so I don't want to overreact or underreact to anything. I think if there was one category that I was really like, this is going to be much different than 2019, it's actually wins. Because with the pitcher workloads, that could be potentially changing, and 6-man rotations being introduced in random spots, I think that it may be much more difficult for certain pitchers to get wins. And so maybe pushing up that elite tier of starting pitching is really smart.
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I was going to go with wins and or strikeouts for that exact same reason. Pitchers are just pitching less. I think, was it the Brewers that said specifically that they're planning on having all their guys just go 100 innings more than what they did last year. And there's no guarantee that they all hit that 100 mark as well. But that's going to bring down all those counting stats for all those starting pitchers, except for those elite guys that you can still trust, the DeGroms of the world, the Biebers of the world, to go close to 200, if not at 200 innings. And they're still going to get their still rates and get those numbers up. But then those guys in the middle rounds, you can't trust them per se to put up the same accounting stats, because they're not playing the same amount of games. They're not pitching as many innings, or they're not pitching as deep into games throughout the season. So I think that's a great point. All right. And then I want you guys to all give me one player that you think is going to be the most common player on every, Justin, how many leagues are there? There's 29?
29, yeah.
29. So of the 29 winners of each league, what's going to be the most common player on those teams? Kevin, who would you guess?
I went back and forth on this one for a while, and I settled on Max Scherzer. I think he wasn't horrible last year. A couple more wins would have been nice. His whip was out of control, but he had the innings, he had the strikeouts. He's going at the end of the second round on average in ADP over the past month. Teams that are going pocket aces and grab him as their second, in my opinion, could end up with 2 top 5 guys. Teams that grab a great hitter early and get him late second, or even get another hitter and go with him early third, if that's a possibility, have 2 great hitters and a possible top 5 starting pitcher. So I think either way you go, if you end up with Max Scherzer, you have that shot. So I think that's my choice.
So I'm going to jump in here. I've been thinking about this a lot, just because once I came up with the question, I wanted to make sure I had an answer for it. And I'm going to take a shot. I think Marcus Semien is going to be on a lot of teams. And the main reason I think for this, he's going super late, and he has the ability to put up really high production in that Blue Jays lineup, even if they're playing in Dunedin. And yes, that is how you say Dunedin.
I
yes.
didn't know.
Yeah, Dunedin. I actually interned for the Dunedin Blue Jays back in 2006. So I spent quite a lot of time there, and I made sure to tweet that out a week or two ago once it was announced that's where they're going to play. Dunedin. Engrave that in everybody's minds. And I just think that Simeon's going to be able to play a lot. And at second base, he's going to get double eligibility really quickly early on into the season. And so he's going to give a lot of teams that opportunity to play at different positions, whether they have injuries. And he's going a lot later than I think he probably should be. And so I think that's the kind of player that you're going to see on a lot of winning teams, is a player that can put up high value you're getting a lot of value at the pick that you're getting him at. All right, Danielle, have you had a chance to give any thought to this, of the player you think might be on a majority of the winners of TGFBI leagues?
I haven't put much thought into this. I haven't really had a chance still to look at a lot of the players, but in just glancing around today, I was looking at Jose Altuve, and that's just a total shot in the dark, throw a dart at the board. I see that he's going in later rounds kind of thing. So
yeah, I think all of these are pretty much shots in the dark too. So I appreciate the honesty there.
I've got no analysis or reasoning behind it.
That's fine. Altuve's a good pick. He's going later than maybe he should be or could be. He could produce value higher than where he's going. And I think that's going to be a theme on whatever player this ends up being. Justin, do you have a dart to throw of your own?
Yeah, see, here's the thing. Kevin had all the tools at his disposal. He won the TGFBI overall last year. So he should have gone and looked at his team like I am doing right now. I'm looking at his TGFBI winning team, and I'm looking at the players and why he won. And what did he do? It's the exact thing I said earlier, is he got production from every single spot, and it exceeded what everybody thought. He had guys like Lourdes Gurriel, who went late on this team. He had Marco Gonzalez, who's unsexy, but on the team. He had Tyler Mahle, who broke out. He got Trevor Rosenthal. He had Trevor Bauer, who had the bounce back year. The guys who are going to be on the most amount of TGFBI winning teams and the overall winner is going to be someone who's unsexy, someone on a bounce back, someone you get round 16, round 17, that everybody's he's boring. And then he goes out and just has either a bounce back year or really good year and really exceeds where you got the draft spot. So my kind of pick, it's going to be someone like Marcus Stroman. It's going to be someone like Justin Turner. It's going to be one of these guys that everybody's fading for one reason or another. Opt out last year for Marcus Stroman, Justin Turner's injury risk and late signing, holding down his ADP, that they overproduce or produce really where they have in the past, and you go, I got so much added value. That's how I won the league.
That's good insight. That hits on a lot of good points. All right. So we got a couple. This is the first time we've gotten we talked about this last week. We didn't get a chance to get to them, but we do have a couple of mailbag questions. And this question does come from somebody, we'll keep it nameless, but they are in TGFBI. And they really wanted us to explain how to make a FAAB bid on NFBC. And specifically, what does the term waterfall mean? Now, Justin, I think if I'm not mistaken, you plan on doing some kind of tutorial video, if not just for Danielle, for anybody to watch. So why don't you give a brief synopsis without any visuals, because this is still a podcast and not a video. Do your best to outline exactly how to do that, because it is different on NFBC than it is to make FAAB bids on other platforms.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where if you've never done it before, it can be really frustrating, and people often struggle with this aspect of the NFBC site. So you go to those 3 little dots at the top left. You click on it. It gives you kind of the different screens you can go. You hit the transaction button, and then you go to free agents. Okay. So now you got your free agents list, right? So then you go, okay, I want to pick up, I don't know, Adam Frazier this week. And you click the little tag button, and that puts them over in your bid section. And then you can put your bid amount in and pick who you're going to drop. Now, here's the tricky part. A lot of times people will just go, okay, I repeat the process, right? No, you want to set multiple bids for the same drop. Okay, so there's a little person with a plus sign over there, and then you can add a different person to pick up. It'll take you right back over to the player screen. You go, if I don't get Adam Frazier, then maybe I want, I don't know, Tuki Tucson. I'm just throwing out a random name. Most likely you're going to pick a hitter, right? Or Renato Nunez. There you go. So I want Renato Nunez. So you then again, it's now green, the little pickup button. The person's gone, and it's this little, it looks like a little price tag, and it's green. And you click it, and it adds it to that same bid. So you have to then go click over back on bids, and you've got Adam Frazier, you have your bid amount, and you've got Renato Nunez. Now you change your bid amount. Now let's say you want all the bids to be the same. That's the waterfall button, and there's a little water drop. And so let's say you're deciding, I want to spend $34 on this pickup. I don't care who it is or, who I get, but this bid on, that I want to win is going to be $34. You put $34 in the first bid. You hit the waterfall button. I'm actually doing this as I talk to you guys. Yeah, see? Nice. And then it's now every single bid that I've put in for that player is $34. Now, let's say you've made your list of players. So it's 17 players deep. It doesn't necessarily need to be 17 players. But you go, I want to drop another player. Then you go hit that price tag. It's like a double price tag button over on the right of your bids, and it duplicates it for you. So then all you got to do is change that first top drop person to the other person you're going to drop off your team. Let's say Steven Strasburg gets Tommy John. You got to drop him. You just change that bid, and it should change it for all of them. So that is how you work the NFBC FAAB system.
Nice. And that gives you a head start, Danielle, as in addition to the questionnaire as well. The last question, Justin, thank you. I actually look forward to the video that you end up putting together on this for the tutorial.
We'll definitely do something.
I think you'll get a lot of views on that.
Yeah, it probably won't be before the start of TGFBI, but we'll definitely do stuff during the drafts to help people get ready for FAAB and also help Danielle get ready for FAAB.
Yeah, because it really comes down to it. This isn't just for Danielle. It's not just for your benefit. There's a lot of people. I know I'm benefiting. And Kevin, you talked about it earlier today. All these podcasts have been really insightful. All right, so the second question on here, and last one of the night. And Kevin, I'm going to direct this towards you. What differences do you see in drafting a 12-teamer versus a 15-teamer? And is there anything you can learn from studying the market, the ADP, from each type of league?
Yeah, I remember when we got this email, I steered towards the second part of it here a little bit. It depends on where we are in draft season, because early in draft season, the NFBC ADPs for 12-team leagues are best ball leagues. I would rather see Roto League ADPs. So even if I'm drafting in a 12-team league, I'm going to look at the 15-team league ADPs. because the best ball leagues devalue stolen bases and saves. And then now there's been enough online championships drafted. I referenced them earlier. There's been 21 in the past month. And so if you're playing in a 12-team league, I would shift and start looking at the online championship ADP for NFBC.
Yeah, I think, Justin, you put out a tweet a couple of weeks ago about, the question was, when do you stop looking at ADP? And you're like, pick 1-1. And there's some truth to that, to be sure. But the value of knowing where the players are going and what kind of value you can get based on what the market is saying. And actually, I think, Justin, you do a great ongoing series over at Fangraphs, if I'm not mistaken, a Market Watch, where you actually take a look at some of the guys that are going up and down based on different things that are happening out. Free agents are signing. Obviously, they get a boost. Injuries happen, et cetera, or at least injuries are announced, like Sean Murphy's collapsed lung that just kind of came out of nowhere. So these are really good things to look at. I'll echo everything Kevin said and also add in the fact that the main strategy everybody talks about is that in a 15-team league, the free agent pool is going to be a lot thinner. And so typically you see a lot less risks being taken in a 15 team. So some of those riskier players, even like the prospects or injury prone players, they may drop a little lower in a 15 team league. So you might see their ADP in a 15 team league a little lower than you would in a 12 team league because they're more easily replaced on the wire in a 12 teamer. So that's something to consider when you're looking at different ADPs. I can't say it enough personally that what bothers me a lot when I hear a lot of people talking about ADP and they're quoting just random numbers of ADP, they don't put it in any kind of context. They don't say what the ADP is. If you just go to NFBC and look at the ADP and you don't do any of the filters, you're looking at literally every draft that's happened from October 1st to today. And we talked about earlier, it's like the guys that are getting drafted in October and November are getting drafted completely differently than if you had a draft today. So it's really important to know when you're looking at it, what format you're looking at for your ADP, the size of your league, and the rules of the league that you're looking at ADP. So I think that's really important. You can learn a lot of different things from looking at each one.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think doesn't get talked about enough, like ADP is a very good tool, and I do the Market Watch article, but it's to show where the market is on players generally. Here's the thing with ADP. When you have a draft, someone's going to finish first, someone's going to finish second, someone's going to finish third, someone's also going to finish dead last. And ADP incorporates every person who drafted. And it doesn't weight it any differently because we don't know who's going to win. So bad players are involved in the ADP. And the 15th place team at the end of the season and the first place team at the end of the season had the same amount of weighting in the ADP. So like, when I say I don't look at ADP during a draft, it's because I've already committed something to memory in terms of I know where players are going to go. But ultimately what matters to me is what I think, because I don't want to draft completely based on what has happened in previous drafts with half of the league that's going to finish at the bottom half of their league. So it's definitely a tool, and I think it definitely helps you learn the player pool. But don't draft off ADP. Have your own ideas or use other people you trust rankings or projections and things like that and make your own decisions. Because if you say, I really like just a random player X, I really like Drew Smyly. And Drew Smyly's ADP is 221. Oh, it's picked 200. I can wait around. One, you don't know if someone else likes Drew Smyly. And two, that ADP is based on just as many people are going to finish dead last in their league as that are going to win their league. And so throw it out the window a little bit and don't take them in the third round, but throw that out the window a little bit and go, I'm going to go get my guy. And that's why I say once the draft starts, I don't care about the ADP.
Yeah, I think that those min-max picks are almost more important to look at than the ADPs to give you an idea of, hey, if I want this guy, somebody likes him this much, he might be in my league. Yep. And somebody hates him this much, maybe he'll drop. But I think it's a better measurement, if you will. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for us this week. Justin, Danielle, thank you guys so much. We did indeed go long on this podcast, and I greatly appreciate the time. I am extremely happy to get Justin on the early end of Potapalooza so that we were able to get some decent sound bites and sound mind behind some of his analysis. And I know Kevin and I will both be participating in Potapalooza. Kevin, I think your slot's on Saturday. Yeah. So 3 days of potting in a row for Kevin. Good for you. I get a day off on Saturday, come back on Sunday. And I'm really looking forward to all that. Kevin, what's your panel?
We're talking a lot of same things we were talking this episode. I forget everybody that's in that one. I could look real quick. I know Todd Zola's in it. I don't even have my email pulled up to take a look, but a very similar subject.
You've got Todd Zola, so another TGFBI winner. I wanted to put you guys together. And then I believe you have Joel Hernard, who's top 25 all time in the historical ranks. And then the other guy is, I'm blanking on it. It's another person who's like top 15 in the overall ranks. And what I wanted to do was put together 4 people who've done really well in TGFBI and pick their brains and go, these are guys who obviously know how to play this format and can maybe help other people succeed in similar format. That's why he gets to go mano a mano against another former TGFBI overall winner.
Yeah, looking forward to it.
Nice. And I'll be joining Andrew Dewhurst, Robbie Baseball, and Derek Carty on Sunday afternoon talking about sleeper hitters for the 2021 season. And it'll be nice because I'll just be able to look through Derek Carty's projections and just pick the guy that is going the best via ADP. So I won't have to think about it too much. And he won't be able to disagree with me either. So that'll be nice. So once again, Justin, Danielle, thank you guys so much. Danielle, good luck to you and TGFBI and any future leagues that you may decide to join. And I look forward to hopefully drafting with you in the ghost form of Justin in that other league that we talked about earlier. And as a reminder, you guys can all follow us on Twitter at OnTheWirePod. And reminder to rate and review the podcast. It goes a long way. Join PL Plus. You can talk to all of us, including Justin, in the PL Discord. And Justin, give another shout out to the best places that people can follow your work, and not all of them, just the best ones.
Yeah, the best place to follow me is on Twitter at Justin Mason FWFB. And I mean, I'm everywhere. Friends Fantasy Benefits, Fangraphs, TGFBI.com.
Nice. And Danielle, what's the best way people can follow your work as well?
They can follow the work that I'm doing for our series at fantasy_about on Twitter, or talkaboutfantasy.wordpress.com, blog that will be following everything that I'm doing. And then if you just want to chat it up with me, that's at Mrs. D. Salinger on Twitter.
Yeah, that's a good follow. Highly recommend.
Thank you.
All right. Good luck to both of you guys. Maybe more so Danielle and TGFBI. And none of us are in the same league, so that's nice.
Yes.
And all right, for Kevin, you can follow Kevin, of course, at HastingKevin on Twitter. You can follow myself at 80grade. That's all spelled out. And for Kevin and Justin and Danielle, I am Adam Howe. And with that, we bid you goodbye.
Jake from State Farm here, hanging out with Mel's Mow and Grow. Mel chose State Farm for small business insurance because his local agent is a small business owner too. So she knew how to help him personalize his policies. And now, he's rolling in the green. Like a good neighbor? Guys, I'm trying to do the line.
Oh, sorry, Jake.
It's all good. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Talk to an agent today.
At Bet365, we don't do ordinary. We believe that every sport should be epic. Every touchdown, every game, every point, every play. From the moments that are legendary to the ones that fly under the radar. Whether it's a 99-yard pass to score a touchdown or a fumble in the first minute of the game. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. 21 plus only. Must be present in Iowa. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-BETS-OFF. Terms and conditions apply.
The reviews are in for McDonald's hotter, juicier burgers. Let's hear what Hamburglar has to say.
Bravo, bravo.
What our old friend Hamburglar said is, the patties are juicier. The bun is a thing of beauty. The cheese perfectly melted.
Bravo.
My burger dreams have come true. You heard him, folks. These are McDonald's best burgers ever. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Bravo. Available at most restaurants in this area. Comparison of McDonald's classic burgers to prior burgers.
Hey parents, Greenlight is here to take one big thing off your to-do list, teaching your kids about money. With a Greenlight debit card and money app of their own, kids and teens learn to earn, save, and invest. You can send money instantly, set flexible controls, and get real-time notifications of your kids' money activity. Set up chores and put allowance on autopilot to reward them for their hard work. Then learn about the world of money together. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.